webinar. And so the way that we've decided to challenge this is around these, or to tackle this, is around these 4 research goals. And so we did a series of focus groups and a national survey throughout the year and released the results in the spring. And what we really wanted to find out was this: what do middle and high school parents and students know and think about CTE? What are the motivators and barriers to them enrolling in CTE programs? What are those messages and those themes and that language that can really encourage them to think of CTE as an option for their education? And then how do you get those messages in front of parents and students? So who are those best messengers? And so our first finding, which is probably the most exciting and what we all know, but it's great to have this national data, is that CTE really delivers for parents and students. As you can see from this slide, 55% of parents and students are very satisfied with their school experience, compared to only 27% of those not enrolled in CTE. And for the sake of this presentation, I should explain that currently enrolled, or those who have enrolled in CTE are either those students that are enrolled now or were enrolled in CTE and their parents, and then prospective parents and students are those that have not enrolled in CTE but are interested in CTE in some way. So they read a couple sentences about CTE and marked that they were interested. And so you can see that prospective parents and students aren't that satisfied with their education, and current CTE parents and students are very satisfied. You can also see that they're really satisfied around those indicators that are super unique to CTE. So that ability to learn real-world skills, the opportunities to explore different careers of interest, and the opportunities to earn college credit. And so that's, a great opening and selling point for your program. Also, what's next is that CTE delivers for parents and students across all the indicators. So you can see on this slide that we tested among those things that make CTE really unique, but we also tested among those things that are pretty traditional to all high school experiences. So quality of teachers, quality of classes, social life opportunities, and still parents and students were overwhelmingly more satisfied with all of these indicators when they were tested during the national survey. The next finding is that college and career success are both important for parents and students. And so you can see here that although 60% of parents and students strongly agree that getting a college degree is important, finding a career that a student is passionate about is actually the most important to parents and their children, with 70% strongly agreeing with that sentiment. And the idea that finding a career they're passionate about also outweighs having a job that pays well, demonstrating that passion seems to win over paycheck when it comes to parents and students in this age group. I think this is another fantastic opening for CTE. Very rarely do we get to in high school and middle school really explore what we're good at, what we're not good at, what we love, what we don't love. And it's a fantastic way to talk about CTE as a way to explore those things before you invest in your post-secondary education or jump into your career. All right, next slide. So another thing that is probably no surprise to us is that CTE awareness of the term is moderate. Less than half of prospective parents and students have heard of the term CTE. I can tell you from the focus groups, even less than that have actually, if they've heard of the term, actually know what it is and could explain what it is. Unfortunately, more known terms are vocational education, and we all know the stigmas that are attached to that. So no matter how hard we've tried to rebrand over the last decade or two, we still have a lot of work to be done in that area. Career Center, Career Education, and Career Academy also had some recognition, but those terms can mean different things in different communities. And so I think this just drives home the fact that while we have the dual challenge of not only trying to spell CTE, but then also really trying to explain what CTE is. Our next finding in the report, and we'll dig into this a little bit more in a second, is that prospective parents and students really, really like those real-world benefits of CTE. In the focus group, we heard again and again that they're not finding that connection to what they're learning in the classroom to what they'll be doing in the workplace. They want more of those real-world skills. And nearly 90% of prospective parents and students in the survey wish they or their child could get more real-world knowledge and skills during high school. So again, another fantastic opening for CTE. So who are those messengers, and how do we get these messages in front of parents and students? What is also probably no surprise is those people that students and parents interact with every day are those most trusted sources. That is the guidance counselor, the teacher, and the CTE students or alumni. I'd also say that the CTE students and alumni are a critical piece to this, and bringing up those success stories is something that through the focus groups in the 3 different states we heard again and again, that they want to hear from someone that looks like them and sounds like them and is from their community to really believe this is a real option for them. Lower down on the list are those groups that parents and students don't have as much daily interaction with, people like the State Department of Education and the superintendent, though it's still really important to get those messengers on board with your messages. Another group that we tested was employers, and while those came up right below superintendent as being a trusted source of information, and so you wouldn't necessarily think of them as messengers, they are critical people to get talking about CTE in the right way to parents and students. And a big part of that is that when you have employer engagement and work-based learning opportunities, students and parents don't understand what those look like, and so you really need to show what will your kids be doing at an internship or an apprenticeship or a mentorship, and how does that really work in the classroom? So those employers may not be someone that they're interacting with day to day. They're an important piece of this puzzle. We also tested those channels. You can see on the right-hand side of this slide. And you can see at the top, education website is where parents and students want to get their information. Kind of at the bottom is social media. But we know when you're developing any kind of communication strategy that using all of these channels is really important. And so if you're getting these messages out and this research out across the education website and social media, that's always going to be better than just utilizing your education website. And so what are the most effective messages? So we tested 5 messages for their motivation and believability in both the focus groups and the national survey. And so parents and students had to put on a scale of 1 to 3 which messages were most believable and which were most motivating. And then at the end of the survey, they had to have a forced choice of which one was the most effective. And the one that won far and above all the rest was this idea that parents and students like CTE's ability to prepare them for the real world. And so CTE gives purpose to learning by emphasizing real-world skills and practical knowledge. Those tangible benefits like hands-on training, mentoring, and internships from employers in the community was something we heard over and over again in the focus groups, and then came back as a positive thing in the national survey. And that these tools and experiences make school more relevant and ensure students are ready for the real world. And so we've all had that kind of class where you're sitting in high school and you don't understand what you're learning and how it's going to connect to the after high school life. And CTE really makes that connection for people. And so what's also surprising, and which we did not anticipate but is a fantastic news for communications and marketing strategies, is that this really resonated across all subpopulations. So we tested this across race, ethnicity, education level, income level, geographic, urban, suburban, rural, and it really rose to the top across all. We did not expect that. We thought that lower income communities might resonate more in terms of saving money through dual credit and that sort of thing, but people are really interested and invested in this real world idea. And so I think that's a great news so that no matter what type of student or parent you're talking to, you can use this message and really drive it home. We also learned that all the subpopulations selected CTE's ability to offer students real-world skills as one of the 3 most important elements of their education, and this was after things like graduation rates and partnerships with employers and universities. So some language that works. What we did during the survey was every parent and student perspective and current highlighted with an actual, virtual highlighter, language that, would encourage them to enroll in CTE programs, and this is the language that was really driven home. And so, again, it's those tangible benefits of CTE, hands-on experience and/or training, mentorship, internships, exploration of career options, career and career focus, leadership and confidence, and so really driving home what they get and what they're going to get out of their program is something that you'll have to consider as part of your marketing plan. And so resources and supports. We have a lot more research that I did not have time to get into, but that we encourage you to check out on the website, which I'll send through the chat box. And along with the research, we've really started to dig into how can you begin to use this at the local, state, and national level. And so we've got a bunch of different guides on the language you should use, the language you shouldn't use, do's and don'ts on how to use it. And so there's a lot of things like making your program or making your marketing super local, sharing those student stories, staying positive that we encourage you to check out. There's also guides for how local leaders can put this research into work, so how you can work with your staff and really figuring out how to develop this strategy to increase enrollment into CTE programs in your community. And so as part of this work, we selected 4 states through a competitive RFP process to really pilot these messages online and on-site campaigns. And so we selected Indiana, Maryland, New Jersey, and Washington, and they're doing a bunch of different amazing projects in specific communities in their state with the goal of really scaling these tools that they're creating to the statewide level. And so what you're going to hear next from New Jersey and Maryland is some of the strategies and some of the ways that they started to use this research and that real-world message and the other messages into their communication strategies. From that, we will come up with a bunch of different tools and guides based on the 4 states' work that we're looking forward to sharing this late fall and early winter so you can start putting these same practices into practice in your community. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Marquita Friday, who's going to give a great presentation on the virtual campaign that they're running in Maryland. So without any further ado, go ahead, Marquita.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start talking about, prior to getting this grant, some of the things that we were doing in terms of marketing CTE. We do an annual counselors conference, and we did an event with our local libraries. And so this is where we would partner with the state library, our division of state libraries, as well as the local library and the local CTE office, where students will come and do actual live demonstration projects at the library in the evening just to get more interest about CTE to the public. And this would happen usually right before it was time for students to sign up for their CTE programs. So we were doing a couple of things, but one of the areas that we really haven't tackled and we really haven't done in depth was to look at social media. So we put in a grant to Advanced CTE to pilot a social media campaign in 2 school systems. So we are doing this in Charles County and Talbot counties. And before I start, Maryland is a little different from most states in that we only have 24 school systems. So I know many states have hundreds of systems, but Maryland only has 24. So it's a relatively small state and divided up differently. So each county is a school system plus Baltimore County. And so what we did was we started with the focus group guide that was developed by Advanced CTE, and we wanted to use that to look at these messages and see how counselors, parents, as well as students would respond to, and also find out what social media each group is using. Part of what we also wanted to do was to develop a how-to guide so that could be shared with our other local school systems that wanted to do this campaign, that wanted to replicate the campaign. And we also wanted to brand some of our MSDE publications as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. And so, as I said, we started off with this focus group, and we took the guide from Advanced CTE, and we basically adapted it for Maryland, and we went to each school system, did their own focus group, and I would suggest that if you're going to do any type of media and marketing campaign, it's really the first step to find out what messages are actually resonating. And what we found out was that students in both school systems were very positive about CTE, but where there was a disconnect, and Katie mentioned it earlier, is that people know programs, but they don't necessarily relate those programs to career and technology education. So they know we have a Project Lead the Way Engineering, Project Lead the Way Biomedical Sciences, we have Cisco Computer Sciences, we have traditional programs in automotive and cosmetology. So most people relate the traditional programs to CTE, but not necessarily the newer programs. And both school systems, parents as well as students, they know programs, but they don't necessarily, as I said, they don't necessarily relate those programs to career technology education. So there was a disconnect there. And one of the school systems, ironically, what's really kind of surprised me, the go-to high school in that particular school system is the technical high school, where they offer the majority of the CTE programs, and the campaign that they want to do in this particular school system is for students to know about the CTE programs that are at the student's home high school. So it's a very competitive process to get into the technical high school, and it's where all the students want to go, but at the same time, they don't know or they weren't aware of the programs that were in their actual home high school. And I remember hearing one of the students, she said that, oh, I could have been on a bus for an extra half hour had I gone to the technical high school, had I not found out in time that there was this really great program in my own home high school. So for her, it was a wonderful thing, and what the school system wants to do is really make sure that students know of all their opportunities, not just at the technical center, but also at their home high school. Another thing that came out of the focus group was that students needed to be introduced to CTE earlier. So waiting until high school is too late. So we really wanted to start introducing concepts and introducing career awareness and exploration at the middle school level. And then one of the things that parents said was that we have so many different acronyms, there are so many different names, and then that on top of what they do with state testing, so there are just too many acronyms to keep it all straight. So they wanted fewer acronyms, just clearer verbiage, and just make it more simple to grasp onto the concepts and be able to hold on to what CTE really is. And what we found was that many of the parents, once they found out about the programs that their children could get into, they thought it was great, and one parent was mad that her son didn't tell her about all the opportunities that were available to him in his school. So that was really interesting. So we tested the same messages that were tested through Advanced CTE, and the messages that tested best with students as well as with parents were these two: prepare for the real world and exploring possibilities. So these, in both school systems, these were the messages that did really well with our audiences. Next slide, please. With counselors, now this was interesting. With counselors, they identified the messages that they thought were most appealing to parents and most appealing to students. So they hit it on the mark with exploring possibilities. So that was fine, but they thought that a smart investment would be a message that was appealing to parents. And what parents thought, the parents in our focus group said that they thought that message was a bit misleading. And so I just thought it was interesting that what the counselors thought parents would like was different from what actually came out of the focus group session.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that if that's okay. We also found the same thing in the national survey, and so I think what was interesting about that invest in your future message is that the things that parents and students didn't really like about it, and if this is the same, Marquita, let us, or if it's different, let us know, but is that they didn't like the idea that you're putting kind of that paycheck before passion. And so while it's great to invest in your future, they thought it focused too much on money instead of finding out what you really love. And then they also, it brought in a lot of confusion around if the CTE program costs money. And so I think when you bring the money conversation into it, even if you're just trying to talk about dual enrollment or articulated credit or whatever it may be, it just brings in, they think that CTE programs cost more than traditional high school programs, and that may be the case in some very specific cases, but in most cases it's not. And so, we thought that'd do super well in lower income communities, and it didn't at all. It still didn't resonate with lower, middle, or high income communities. And so it is very interesting to see that counselors, who are those top messengers, aren't talking about it in the way that we, hope that they would. So sorry about that. Go ahead, Marquita.
No, thank you. And that's right on target, because that message in particular raised more questions than it did in terms of just being able to really see the benefits of CTE. And so what we're doing is we use the grant funds to identify a consultant I mentioned earlier that we want to do a how-to guide and also develop messages for students, for parents, and even for counselors in terms of how they can talk about CTE. And so what we're doing with the consultant is actually we want to get pictures. Some of these are stock photos. The one on the left is a stock photo. The one on the right is an actual picture of an actual student in the Charles County Public School systems. But we want to get pictures of students in their programs and then tie it to the messaging, and we're asking them to put these messages on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, whatever social media channels they're using. Now, the one thing that we also found through the focus group, and it really didn't surprise me, but it was still good, it was really confirmed that the parents were on Facebook and the parents were on Twitter. The majority of the students use Instagram and Snapchat. So if we're going to communicate with these groups, we have to know which media to communicate, to use in order to communicate with them. So these are just some examples of some messages that we're starting to put together, that they are now starting to use on their social media messaging. But they're also really templates, because what it basically says is that you can take a picture of a student, add the tagline, add your logo, put some verbiage around it, and then get that message out there. And then what we're trying to do is track. Our hope is that the messages will go viral. I don't know what viral will look like in the CTE realm in terms of the number of hits, but really just track the number of hits, retweets, likes, those types of different things. And so that's basically what we're doing with the messages. We're using these as templates, and we're also, even though the grant ends September 30th, I've never looked at this as a project that ended on September 30th. So we're also working with our state leaders who are with our student organizations, career technology student organizations, and we're going to be sharing the how-to guide. So as they look at the type of social media messaging that they want to do, because that's something that's of very much interest to them, to be able to use the messaging and send it out, to really start taking it to the next level, and then tie these messages to certain occasions. So we have back-to-school night as school is getting started, so we want to start going heavy on the messages. Then there's always CTE month, there's American Education Week, and so we identify some prime times in our how-to guide of when they can really go heavy on the messaging. Anytime the student organizations, their competitions are starting to come, so whether it be Skills USA, FBLA, DECA, FFA, to really use that time to do more of your social media. So to look at timing, to look at how often you do it. What we found working with our vendor, that social media is something that really needs to be done 3 to 4 times a week in order for it to really take hold. And so even though our school systems all participate in social media, I don't know how often CTE messaging is going out using social media, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. School systems aren't using Snapchat yet, so that would be something that the students will be doing amongst themselves. But to really just start taking advantage of the time, because in this arena, it's quantity as much as quality. So to get that message out, you have to get it out repeatedly and continue to do it. And then there are just times, I pick really times when you can just really go heavy on it, when there are things coming up, so that when it's time for students to start looking at the programs that they might be interested in, they'll have an idea of what they want to do. And they would have also seen people that they know in those programs. So we want to engage students who are currently in the program, recent college graduates, or recent high school graduates rather, who are in CTE programs, who may be in college, who may be in an apprenticeship program doing some type of additional training, even if they're on the job, have them say what their CTE program did for them and to get that message out using social media. And so you'll see, again, just a couple more messages with exploring the possibility, and then another one, dream, plan, act. So just to kind of bring all those things together, that they have a dream of what they want to be, what they want to do. CTE is the process in which they can do it, so what they have to do is get involved in that CTE program. That's their action part in order to do it. So.
Thank you so much, Marquita, and I think this is a great example of taking the research and the messages and combining those, right? And so we heard that students are those best messengers, both current and alumni, and so making sure that they're in the photos is pretty critical, whereas if we knew that employers were the best messengers, then obviously they'd be the ones in the photos. And then taking those themes and that language and then combining it with those effective messengers, I think is, you know, and coming up with a plan for schools, I think will really resonate with both parents and students. So thank you so much for presenting.
Thank you.
All right, so next we will have Laurie Howard, who's with the New Jersey Department of Education. They did a great on-site event that I attended a couple months ago, and they're doing a bunch of work with both parents and students ongoing throughout the summer into the fall. And so I will pass it over to Laurie to give an explanation of how they're really using this research and messages in their own work.
Thank you, Katie. And again, New Jersey would like to thank Advanced CTE and Siemens for this great opportunity with this grant. So for New Jersey's objective, what we did, we wanted to increase awareness of career pathways in 4 areas: advanced manufacturing, IT, STEM, and TDL. And the reason that we chose these areas is because they're New Jersey's key industry clusters. So these areas are identified by the Department of Labor and Workforce Development as areas of growth and opportunity in New Jersey. So we really felt like by focusing on these areas, we'll be great opportunities for our students. We wanted our parents to see that these are great career pathways for students to pursue. In New Jersey, the way that we deliver our CTE programs, it's in what you would call a typical comprehensive high school in addition to a vocational high school. Okay, next slide. So what our focus was for the grant, we had a Career Awareness Day. And the reason we chose this is we wanted to reach a large amount of students to provide career exploration. So we focused on Union County, and the reason we did so for that is we had a large number of students who were eligible for free and reduced lunch, and it was a diverse population. And New Jersey also, the reason we named it Many Past, One Future, New Jersey has an attainment goal of reaching 65% of adults by 2025 to have post-secondary attainment. So that could be an industry value credential, a bachelor's degree, or an associate's degree. And the reason we selected middle school students is because, as Marquita and Katie mentioned earlier, that's where students are starting to make their choice for high school and also college. Originally, we had planned to go to 8th grade students, but we decided that 7th grade was better because students are making choices for high school in terms of their coursework. And parents and guardians, the reason we have that event for them is because they need to increase their knowledge about CTE and career pathways. And because trusted sources for parents and students are business industry, student alumni, and colleges, we wanted to make sure that we included them in this event as well. Go to the next slide. So presenters, it was very important for us that our presenters at the event reinforced our core messaging that was found in the research from Advanced CTE. All of our presenters were provided information about the event and about our grant, so they understood the reason that we contacted them and the reason that we felt that it was important that they attended. We made sure that all of our presenters received information on the core messaging and that they were told to reinforce information about real-world skills and opportunities available in those 4 career clusters. And since there is a high percentage, it was found in the research that trust students and alumni and also college and university representatives, we made sure that all of those audiences were participating in the event. And since 2/3 of prospective parents trust employers, we definitely made sure that we had employers and business and industry incorporated. Each of our talent networks have participation from business and industry. So we actually were able to have people from FedEx. We had FBI professionals. We had a retired Army colonel talking about cybersecurity. We had professors from Rutgers University. We had students from Kane University, as well as deans, etc., all there, and it was a nice diverse sample because, again, we want students to see people that look like them so they can see themselves in those positions in the future. The actual day of the event, it was great. So the pictures that are on this slide are some of our middle school students from Linden School District. The Career and College Expo was a part of the event. We didn't want students just sitting in the different sessions. We wanted to make sure the students had a chance to move around. So the Career and College Expo was an opportunity where students were able to talk to some of the CTE alumni as well as current CTE students about what they're doing. The College Expo, the students learned about financial aid, and the financial aid counselors were able to speak to students in a way that was relevant for them, so it wasn't too high level, but it was a way that they could talk to students so students can understand. And the Career Expo provided them opportunities to learn more about TDL firsthand. So FedEx was there. We had our career cluster lead there for transportation, distribution, and logistics. Talking to students one-on-one, showing them the ways that TDL is hands-on. Also, it was very interesting for the school districts that were participating in this program. Some of those high schools had great programs in engineering, STEM, IT, and they thought it would be a great idea to have those high school students participate so the middle school students in those school districts could actually see, I could go to that high school and I could do this program. So again, it's showing that peer-to-peer involvement, and those students can see that someone that looks like me, someone who is like me, can actually do this career. It really gives students a role model, and again, it shows that connection because what I'm learning in middle school can lead me to a career, a class in the high school, and also to a future career in post-secondary. The CTSO members are very important because, again, it shows the leadership opportunities that are available for students in CTE. The CTSOs that participated in our event was TSA, Technology Student Association, as well as FFA. And it was really great because the FFA students, I actually was able to learn that you can extract DNA from a strawberry, which I did not know until I attended this event. And those FFA students provided the opportunity for the students to see firsthand what they could do. So they had a very engaging session on extracting DNA from a strawberry. The career panel, and as well as the engaging topics, really allows students to see diversity and allows students to talk firsthand with people. And the campus tour provided some students the opportunity who may have never been on a college campus to see a college campus that is accessible. So the college that we had the event at was in Kane University, which is more of an urban setting, so students can actually see this is somewhere that I could be. Okay, next slide. So in terms of reaching our parents, guardians, and families, we really wanted to make sure that they were included because there's this low awareness of CTE and career pathways in our state. So our first thing was developing different communication materials for them. So I have a picture of some flyers that we developed. One is in English and one is in Spanish. In terms of developing the messaging for that, all of the messaging reflects the core messaging found through the research. So we talk about career pathways in CTE, offering opportunities for real-world experiences for your students, showing the connection to real-world jobs for your students, and how these things are all things that your student can lead to a nice career pathway. So what your student is learning in middle school to high school to post-secondary. We really wanted to make that connection and let parents know when you go to this event, you'll see what's available. So we had a presentation on the importance of career pathways, which covers CTE 101. Again, we had campus tours, which were a little bit more in depth. Parents had the opportunity to look at different labs that were offered. They had a really great chance to talk to the different deans of STEM and IT. They also had the opportunity, because some of our industry members stayed over from the event during the day, they were able to stay in the evening, and they were able to talk to those professionals as well so they could see. My child, for advanced manufacturing, they might have a view in their head that it's someone sitting in a factory, but when they actually talk to professionals, they could see that it's more than that, and it would give them an idea of what their child could do. And University Admissions was there telling them all about financial aid, giving them a lot of resources that were relevant if they're going to the universities where we held the event or another university. So although we did not have a large participation by parents at the event, it was a great event. And also it was very encouraging to see that one family was actually there. So we had a student from elementary school, middle school, and high school attending with their parent. And the children were very engaged no matter what age they were. So that was very encouraging to us as a group. So another great thing that we found with this event, we did a survey. And for that survey, we wanted to see the change in attitudes and awareness of the children that attended. and we had an excellent response rate, and I think that is due to the fact that we provided a guide for the teachers in terms of administering the survey to the students. So we had about 300 participants and an 87% response rate, and every student, not every student because it's not 100%, but the majority of the students have increased their level of interest in the following career fields. And in terms of what we did for the survey, we made it computer science. We didn't say IT. For some students may not know what that was, so we left it more general engineering, TDL, computer science, and manufacturing. So it was great to see that we increased level of interest in those career fields. In addition, we also had an increased interest in students going to their guidance counselors. So the way that the survey was set up is we asked them questions that before you got here, what did you know? And after you attended, what do you know? Or what are you going to change? And it was great to see that students that before they got there, they may not have gone to see their guidance counselor about certain things, but after they attended an event, they're more apt to go see their guidance counselor to ask them questions about what they can do in the future. And what we're doing with these results, we have shared them with all of the superintendents at the event. They were very encouraged by this because it would give them the opportunity to talk to their school boards, and we're going to be presenting ourselves at a school board meeting, hopefully at the end of September, to share the event and the survey directly with the school board. Next slide. So in terms of reinforcing the message, in New Jersey, we do it a lot of different ways. So social media, we did the day of the event. After the event, we were able to have some social media hits. FFA provided social media in terms of what they did with students in terms of extracting the DNA with the strawberry. And we were able to share that on our Facebook page. In addition, our social media via Facebook, DOE actually shared some things as well. So the two items that are on the outer side, I have an architecture and construction flyer, as well as the one in orange is a CTE 101 flyer. So although architecture and construction was not one of our identified career cluster areas, since the event was held in May, it was Construction Career Industry Day, we wanted to make sure we had the opportunity to reinforce some of the messaging. So at that event, we had parents, educators, and students. We thought it was a really great opportunity to talk about that core messaging, how they can have real-world experiences, they can have opportunities for structured learning experience, and also to let the students know if you're interested in certain things, this might be the career for you, to let parents know that your student might be passionate. And the orange document on the right-hand side talks about the steps to developing a CTE program. So it was very helpful for the teachers and educators that were there, and we had contact number for our career cluster lead in architecture and construction. And another thing that we do within our office, we have all of our branding to fit the national branding with Learning That Works for New Jersey. So within our presentations that we give for CTE, we're incorporating our messaging for the communication messages. So we're reinforcing all of the messaging and everything that we do. And at the bottom, where you see the state seal for New Jersey, we have broadcast messages that are sent out to all of our chief school administrators on a weekly basis, and that allows us an opportunity to communicate with them one-on-one. And when we had an event in June, right after that event, we were able to submit a broadcast message, and right in the beginning of that message, you can give an introduction. So our chief academic officer provided an introduction talking about our event and letting school districts know if you're interested in career pathways in CTE to contact us. So I think all in all, we're doing all we can in New Jersey to reinforce this message, and we do it through a lot of different ways. And some of the future things that we're going to be doing. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to back to school nights. Well, my colleague and myself will be talking to parents directly about opportunities in career and technical education. We'll be talking to them about the importance of career planning and talking to students. We'll be telling them about different opportunities in those 4 career cluster areas. We're also going to be doing something in terms of supporting advanced manufacturing, since Advanced Manufacturing Day is coming up in October. We're going to be meeting with industry and business stakeholders to run the messaging by them in terms of what really resonates with business and industry to further involve them, because we really need their support in offering structured learning experiences so students have those real-world opportunities. We'll also be having some additional communication with the State Association of Parent-Teacher Association, so we can talk to them about making connections. So everyone is very, very interested in helping us, and I think it's great in New Jersey that we have such great support. So again, I want to thank Advanced CTE and Siemens, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.
Great, thank you so much, Laurie. So I want to invite anyone who's on the line to ask any questions about the research messages or the state work happening in Maryland, New Jersey. You can do that on the right-hand side of your screen. Just go ahead and type it into either the Q&A box or the chat box, whichever you prefer. Both will get to me. But before we do, while we wait for those questions to come in, I want to drive home another point that I think is so crucial, is that what New Jersey and Maryland have done that's so great is really taken these messages and research and driven them home at the local level. And so one thing that we found is that while it's wonderful to have the State Department and the national associations and that sort of thing talking about CTE the way that parents and students need to hear it, parents and students aren't really going to understand the benefit of CTE and actually consider it for their education unless they see their programs in action. And so an example is we were in Ohio doing a focus group, and we had a program example. We're in Columbus, Ohio. We had a program example from Pequot, Ohio, which we thought, well, it's Ohio, and that did not resonate at all. So that program, the Pequot one, took place in more rural Ohio. Columbus is more urban, and so it didn't, even though it wasn't that far away, and it's a program that took place in their state, and it won't resonate unless they're really seeing people that look like them, that are in their community, employers that are in their community. And so localizing those examples, which New Jersey and Maryland have done a fantastic job of, is really the crucial step to getting these messages out, and then really reinforcing them at the state level like both of them have done. And so we've got a couple of questions coming in. Thank you so much to Marquita and Laurie. I'll go ahead and unmute Marquita in case she has anything to add. But we had one question about getting the slides after this. So yes, this presentation has been recorded. I didn't record until 2 minutes in, so you've missed my introduction, but otherwise you'll have the PowerPoint slides and the recording, which I'll send after the webinar, and will also be on our website at careertech.org. We also have a question about the CTE logo, so that's a great question. We have the Learning That Works for America campaign is a campaign that we run through Advanced CTE. You may have seen the other state logos, Learning That Works for Maryland, Learning That Works for New Jersey, and so the only thing you have to do to get those is go to our website and then look for the CTE Learning That Works for America campaign on the menu bar. You'll see an agreement form you have to fill out, and then we'll send you the logo after you agree, because each state has to kind of approve each district or each school that's applying for it. So yes, anyone on this line can apply for their state logo as well as the national logo. You'll just have to go to our website to do so, and I can send the link to that after this webinar as well.
Katie, I just want to reinforce something you said in terms of making sure that whatever you do, that you do it at the local level. One of the things that we did, I said earlier that we had taken the guide, the focus group guide, and I just say we Marylandized it, and then we shared it with our local school systems. But each school system used the guide slightly differently, and one of the things that we did with the guide, where they define what CTE is and they talk about the programs, we made sure that the list of programs for each school system, we had the list for the programs that were in Charles County, and when we did the focus group for Talbot County, we had the programs, the CTE programs that were in that school system for that particular guide. So even the focus group discussion guide had to be localized so that those focus groups could run well.
Great. That's a great example. Thanks so much, Marquita. We also have another question from Maxine. What are ways to reach counselors besides their annual counselor conference? And Marquita, I actually know that you're working on your counselor conference, so do you have any feedback in terms of that?
Well, one of the things that we do is we work with the supervisor of counseling here at the State Department of Education. So whenever we have messages or we want to get information out to them, we do have a communication channel to the counseling supervisors in all 24 school systems. They also meet twice a year on their own, and we always make sure that we're invited to at least one of their meetings. so that we can talk about things that are going on in terms of CTE and some of our initiatives, and that's another way that we're able to get to them. But usually at our counselors conference, we have about 350 attendees. Now, that's not all counselors, but the majority of that group is counselors. And so what happened was when we first started doing, this is about the, I don't know, maybe 12th or maybe even a 14th year that we've been doing the annual counselors conference. And when we first started, it was only for our Project Lead the Way programs, as that was a requirement for Project Lead the Way. But what our counselors said to us was that we wish you would do this for all of your programs. So then we turned it into a general STEM conference. And what we find is we get counselors who come back every year, who they attend annually. So it's something that they look forward to. So I know that helped us to get our out. That in conjunction with the library project that we've done, I think that was a really big initiative just in terms of being able to partner with our the local libraries, the school system, getting the school system to partner with the local libraries, and having those live CTE demonstrations at the public library. That was just a way of getting not just counselors involved, but teachers, and just getting the general public involved in CTE and giving them an opportunity to see what's happening. And both of the school systems where we're piloting the campaign have done the library project as well. So they're both very active in terms of doing marketing at the local level.
Thanks. So finding those critical partners is a big piece of this. Laurie, did you have anything to add?
No, at this time, I think the partners, Cte, I definitely do agree. It's very, very important to include them. We definitely really looked forward to working with our professional organizations. I really think reaching out to them, they look forward to people reaching out to them, and they were happy to help. We had a very tight timeline for coming up with our Career Awareness Day, but the fact that we were able to pull everything together and have such great industry and business participation really let me know that everybody is willing to do this, and they see the importance of encouraging children to pursue these career pathways and pursuing career and technical education.
Great. Thanks, and I will add that Advanced CTE is actually going to tackle this, where we're tackling this issue right now. So we heard loud and clear that guidance counselors are really those messengers that need to be armed with this information. And so we're working with the American School Counselor Association right now, doing a national survey of both our state directors as well as 3,000 of their members to figure out how are they talking about CTE. And so you saw that from Marquita's slide that they're talking about it in a slightly different way than we hoped they would. And then how their systems work and that sort of thing. From that work, we'll be creating a report and a set of tools that will come out in February during CTE month that really digs into this counselor issue. And so we'll have more information on that soon, but something that we hear loud and clear and that we're tackling, and hopefully we'll have a lot of resources for you soon. We also had another question. Let's see. So Marquita and Laurie, do you believe the most critical audience to address is counselors or parents, or are both important, but where should you start? So if you're thinking through your communication strategy or your marketing strategy or your recruitment strategy, Marquita, for example, counselors weren't a part of this grant when we send out the RFP, so why did you choose to include them? And as you both think through your strategies, do you think it's more important to kind of get those counselors on board, or are you targeting parents directly instead?
Cte?
Yeah.
This is Laurie from New Jersey. Cte, what I think, I know counselors are very, very important, but I think also that parents are important. So I would start with the parents, as I feel that if more parents are going to their counselors, that puts a push on the counselors to get more information, therefore we put a push on the administration to support those counselors. In New Jersey, we have counselors sometimes that have 500 children assigned to them, so it's very difficult for many of them to do some of the career counseling that they need to do with students. So I do believe that if we start with the parents, we start with our students, and then have our secondary be the counselors, knowing at the same time we have to engage them. But I feel with the workload that they have, sometimes they're not available to do the one-on-ones they need to do with the students. So if we get the messages out to the parents, therefore they can actually make sure that they're making sure that they're reaching out to the administration of their school, so therefore those schools can provide better support to the school counselor to help those students meet those needs.
And this is Marquita, and actually I would say both, and the reason why I say that is really not necessarily based on this project, but because of the Project Lead the Way engineering program, I do a lot of certification visits where I'm actually in the schools talking to counselors, parents, teachers, and administration. And let me back up a little bit. CTE at a CTE center where there's a counselor, there's no misunderstandings about CTE when the programs are at the CTE center. Where we find more of the disconnects are when the programs are offered at the comprehensive high schools. So all counselors, based on our visits, they go to the middle schools, they introduce the students to all of the programs that are available at the high school and also at the CTE center to let the students know what their options are. And so we want to make sure that when they have those conversations with students that they have enough of an understanding of CTE so that they could talk about it in a way so that children understand that this is not just that choice. You have to get it out of their heads, that old voc ed thinking out of their heads. So we don't want them to think that, oh, well, I'm not going to share this information with students because this is only for those students who are not going to college. We want to let them know what are the opportunities. Laurie is right when they say most have heavy cases, the 400-to-1 ratio, so they're not going to be able to do necessarily the ongoing counseling, but they do have that initial contact. And when we ask parents, how did they find out about the CTE program for their son, for their children, it's usually through the counselor or through someone at the school. It was through that back-to-school night. There was some type of event that happened where the students actually visited the program, something to that effect. So we want to make sure our counselors can talk about the programs intelligently, because usually when parents know about it, it was because they were informed through the counselor at the school. But the question is, do they have that opportunity to do that ongoing guidance? And so that's where the parents, if they know about the program, then that's where they can really work with their children to make sure that their children are in good programs, if they have a better understanding of what as well. So I would really say it's both, and not parents over counselors or even counselors over parents.
Great, thank you so much. And you can see second from the last on the list, we just released a couple weeks ago a parent and guardian engagement tool, so to help you start thinking through that strategy. Hopefully by the end of this work with ASCA, we'll have a similar one for guidance counselors, but that could also help you get started. And I sent the link where you can find all of that stuff in the chat box. We have, it was probably our last question, but do you, Marquita or Laurie, have any other examples of using CTE alumni, so those students that have already graduated from CTE programs as your ambassadors?
Yes, this is Marquita again, and with our CTE library project, oftentimes the kickoff event would always start off with bringing together CTE students, people from our school board, from the local chamber, from the business community, and we will also, the highlight of the event would be the CTE students talking about the program that they're in, why they chose the program, and what the program is doing for them. And we always chose not just students who were currently in programs, but students who had recently graduated from programs as well. So it was always an opportunity for, as I said, people from the chamber, from the business community, the school board, to hear about CTE from another perspective. We also always include that at our counselors conference as well. So we always get high school students to present about what, in terms of the programs that they're currently in, but we always get college students to present who were in a CTE program in high school, who are still continuing that study, whether it be a 2-year program, 4-year degree, what they're doing, how it helped them. So we want our counselors to hear about CTE, not just from students who are currently in the program, but for students who were in the program and who are still using what they learned from that program to continue on with their future goals.
Right, and in New Jersey we have a couple of great examples. And one of the ways that we work on this, we have actually a program in Elizabeth. We have a teacher of health science. She is now working with her former teacher at the school, and that teacher is one of her former students. So the teacher is currently a nurse based upon what she learned when she was working, when she was a student of this teacher. So she went back to school. She was really encouraged by participation in HOSA. And we actually also, our DECA state advisor is a current, or sorry, not current, he's a former CTE student. So again, we really see that we have connections that way. In addition, the main keynote speaker at the event that we had in June was a FFA student. She was FFA alumni, and she'll be speaking to some of our school districts in the fall. So again, we really make sure that students see those examples and they really see that they can be successful and they can be a leader based upon their experience in career and technical education.
And I think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, and I just wanted to add one last thing. One of the things that we're also doing is we're updating we have a Maryland CTE program website, and we're in the process of updating the profiles. And so we have a couple of students. We have one student who's going to an internet. He graduated from our graphic communications printing program, and he's going to Abu Dhabi. He's already graduated from high school, but he's going to Abu Dhabi to an international competition. So we're going to update some of the profiles of students that we have on our CTE website. Some of them are currently in high school. Some of them will be in college. That's another thing that we're doing. And lastly, we're fortunate that our Assistant State Superintendent, Dr. Lynn Gilly, is a product of CTE. So she's sort of like she's always our poster person for CTE.
Great, that's awesome. So I think another way you can, I think Idaho or New Jersey's work in really engaging those CTSOs, a lot of them have a great alumni network, and so thinking through how you can really partner with them. I'm sending along another website. Idaho's CTE state office does all these CTE stories that are captured through video. Kind of a long story, but basically they got funding from PBS to do this series, and now it's housed on their website. And so while these may be current students that are presenting, they do have a good amount of alumni in them. And so I think that if you're thinking about different channels, these video projects have a pretty long shelf life and can be a really good way of driving home those student success stories and those messages. Washington State, who's one of our pilot programs, will be doing something super similar. So we'll have a lot of video templates and videos that we can share at the end of this grant period as well. Well, I think we're right out of time, right at 4 o'clock. I want to thank Marquita, Laurie, so much for joining us today. It was great to hear about your fantastic pilot programs, and we're so excited to see them be scaled at the state level in the coming year. I want to thank all of our attendees. I know that everyone has a very busy schedule, and we really appreciate you taking the time. I want to encourage you to visit our website and really dig into a lot of that research and those tools, and feel free anytime to reach out to me. My email address is right there. You can also give the office a call if you want to bounce around any ideas or really tackle some of those recruitment and communications issues in your own community, whether that's at the state, local, or district level. We've also got Marquita's information there and Laurie's information, so if you'd like to reach out to them directly, feel free to do so. And so I will send along the recording from this presentation. Again, I'm sorry the first 2 minutes are cut off, and then the slides, and then I will send around some resources and tools that we've created in the last couple months as well. We'll have an evaluation right when you close, or I think you'll get it in your email box tomorrow, so if you can make sure to fill that out, we would appreciate it, and that way we can continue to improve our webinars. And again, thank you to Laurie and Marquita, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.